great opportunity for us as a community to come around and hear from three gentlemen who have put themselves forward for a position that really does impact everyday daily life in our community. And so we are looking forward to this. My name is Robbie Larson. I work for the George Foster, but I also have the opportunity to be the chair of the Chehalem Valley Chamber of Commerce Government Affairs Council this year. Which has been a really neat opportunity to engage around topics related to government and how that interacts with the chamber and the community at large. So with that, I've been asked to facilitate today's discussion. And so at this point, I'm going to have our three candidates come on up. Tim Casey, Joe Shipley, and Tim Scott. Welcome to the stage.
AM 1260 KLYC, we're broadcasting live from Friendsview Manor. We're about ready to get underway with the candidates forum for Yamhill County Sheriff, presented by the Chehalem Valley Chamber of Commerce and I believe City Club, sponsored by PGE. If you go online to our website, you can watch the live video going on right now, KLYC.us. And so we will go to the microphone.
Want me to get that for you?
Yeah, please. Thank you.
As we all get settled up here, I'll give you a little bit of information about how we're going to proceed. This will be very similar to other forums that the Chehalem Valley Chamber of Commerce has hosted in the past. What we'll do, each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. Following that, we have a series of questions. Each question will be posed to all three candidates, and each will have 2 minutes to answer each of those questions. And then at the end, each candidate will have 2 minutes for a closing statement. One of my fellow council members from the Government Affairs Council, James Gosney, down here in the front row, is our timekeeper. And so for the three of you, she's got 3 signs: green for 1 minute left, yellow for 30 seconds left, and red for time is up. So you don't want to get to the red sign. But if you do, that's okay. Also, I think it's important that everyone knows that we are broadcasting this. KLYC is here. And what's that? KLYC. I knew I was going to roll that. KLYC is here. So that's why there are 4 mics for 3 candidates. For those of you, for you guys here, do your best to speak into the mics in front of the KLYC. Mike will pick it up. But they're going to be broadcasting live so that residents throughout the county can hear today's activities. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you all again for being here. And we'll go ahead and start. Tim Casey, if you would like to start.
Okay.
And 2 minutes.
Can we?
Welcome, everybody. I am Tim Casey. I am running for sheriff, and I look forward to being your next sheriff for the next 12 years in Yamhill County. A little history about myself. My great-grandfather came over from Ireland in the 1800s. My granddad was born, he came over to McMinnville. My grandfather was born in McMinnville in 1909. My dad, Fred Casey, was born in McMinnville in 1935. I have 6 brothers and sisters, and we were all born in McMinnville. And we moved our family to Newburgh in 1958. My mom was born, I believe, in the Union area. We moved over to McMinnville at a very young age, and her and my father attended McMinnville High School. They married out of high school, and have lived in Newburgh ever since. My oldest sister, Mary Lynn, is a retired school teacher, and she's a librarian here in Newburgh. My brother Chris has decided to tackle the football coaching job here at George Fox College. They haven't had a program since 1969, so they've got quite an endeavor ahead of them. My brother Pat's the head baseball coach at Oregon State. My sister Julie lives here in Newburgh, and she works at a bank in Tigard. My best friend and brother Brian Casey is the chief of police here in Newburgh. My sister Colleen works for Century Hotel, lives in Newburgh, and of course here myself. I have a wife, Carrie. We've been married for 28 years. Her maiden name was Carrie Cuny. They've been invested in this county as a family for a very long time, to the point where there's a road named after them. I have 3 children. My oldest son, Austin, 27. My daughter, Lauren, 24, and my youngest son, Ryan, 21. They all live here. Well, Lauren and Austin live here in Dubert, and my youngest son is still attending college down at Lynn Benton, living in Corvallis. As your sheriff, I will protect you and your homes. I will protect the elderly, young children, the people that are less able to find themselves in society, and I'll take a strong stance against domestic violence, child abuse, and child sex abuse. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. My name is Joe Shipley. I was born in McMinnville, raised in Amity. I graduated from Amity High School. I have a degree in criminal justice from Chemeketa Community College. I began my public safety service when I was 15 years old as a volunteer firefighter EMT, and I rose through the ranks and eventually left the fire service as a lieutenant. I joined the military and went to lots of different areas. I was a military police officer in a combat MP company in the Army, and I'm a proud member of the VFW out of Dayton. I came back home to Yamhill County and began my employment with Yamhill County Sheriff's Office in 1992 as a reserve deputy in the jail. I worked in the jail for approximately a year as a control room technician, where I eventually transferred to patrol. As a patrol deputy, I've been a field training officer responsible for training new recruits as well as reserves. I was a detective and worked narcotics alongside Captain Kosmicki back there. And I have a real strong relationship with every other law enforcement agency within this community. I eventually was promoted to sergeant in 2008, and I've supervised the various programs within our office, from reserve program to training, overseeing the Woods program. I worked as a corrections officer, supervisor in the jail for a year, and most recently came back to patrol. In my spare time, I teach down at the academy, at the police academy. I teach narcotics investigation and crash investigation. When I'm not doing that, I coach high school girls basketball for YC, where my wife and my 2 kids and I live in Carlton. As a sheriff, what I hope to achieve is a balanced, common sense approach to law enforcement through fiscal and community responsibility. The balance being education, prevention, and enforcement. Education of our youth so that they don't repeat the problems of our past, and prevention for our elderly that, quite frankly, need somebody to help them. That's my time, and thank you.
All right, well, good afternoon. My name is Tim Swenson. Thank you for having me here today. I grew up and was raised in Klatskanai, Oregon, a small town up on the coast by Astoria. In middle school and high school, I really heavily got involved in student leadership throughout the state. I worked with Oregon Association of Student Councils, served as a state rep, and I also got heavily involved in Kids Making Miracles, which is a program that helped raise dollars for the building of the new Dornbecker Children's Hospital up in Portland. There are still programs today. In fact, this weekend I attended the Mr. Mac High, where they raised over $25,000 that goes to Dornbecker. And those type of activities are programs that have been put into place from back when I was in high school, going around the state, telling people about the hospital and why it's important to raise money. I took off to college to Western Oregon University, studied criminal justice. I met my wife there. We've been married since 2000. Her family was heavily from the McMinnville area. My family was also from the McMinnville area. So I applied to be an intern at Yamhill County Sheriff's Office in the summer of 1999. I got accepted in the program, had a free place to stay at my grandma's house in McMinnville. A position opened up for a patrol deputy. I applied for it, and the next thing you know, I'm working in here at the Sheriff's Office. I've done everything in our office from patrol deputy to canine deputy to sergeant. I was an administrative sergeant for some time. Requested a transfer to the jail. Worked in the jail for about a year and came back down to patrol to be put into the operations captain's position, which is where I currently serve right now. My wife and I live in Lafayette. I've got a 3-year-old daughter. We have a vested interest in this community. It's one of the reasons why I moved here is because Yamhill County is an excellent place to live and raise a family. As the next sheriff, I wanted to continue the legacy of the people who worked in our office before and move our county forward. Thank you.
Thank you all. And the amazing way that they work together here to pass the microphone. So, thank you for that. Hopefully everybody can hear all the way to the back. We're going to jump into the questions. I'm going to kind of bounce around.
So
who gets to go first throughout this program, just so it's not always the same order necessarily. And I'm going to go to one question here that is somewhat broad. So to start off, I'm going to have Joe, if you would be willing to take this one first. You all spoke to this a little bit, but describe your education and experience and explain how that qualifies you to run the Sheriff's Department, including the management of personnel, budget oversight, and policy implementation.
Well, with my commitment to service, starting in the volunteer fire service, I was part of the Volunteer Firefighters Association and the budget that went along with that. In the military, I filled several leadership positions, from team leader, squad leader, and eventually I was the supervisor in charge of the game enforcement division. When I came back home from the military, I was elected as a city council member in the city of Amity, where I sat for a couple of years and was also on the police commission, in charge of the budget for the police commission as well as the city of Amity and its administration. With the sheriff's office, I have participated in several different budgetary issues. When there was a staffing issue, I went and found a schedule that worked for us and reduced overtime, reduced sick leave usage, saved money so that we could keep deputies on the road. My educational experience with my degree from Chemeketa, I have a mid-management certification through DPSST, and along with that, my leadership experience of military, firefighter, law enforcement, coach. I believe that all of those skills will help me not only to see the future and what we need to do, but to prepare, plan, and execute what needs to happen so that not only do we advance with time, but we don't repeat the mistakes of our past and increase the staffing levels that we need to provide the services that the citizens of this county need.
Well, like I said before, I currently hold a Bachelor's of Science in Law Enforcement. In college, I took a lot of classes in the emphasis of public policy and administration, several governmental budgeting classes. I've been a supervisor with our office since 2004, but more specifically for the last 8 years, I've been working directly with the command staff in our office in an administrative role, making sure that the motor pool and the fleet and all the special projects that we have in our office are operating within the means. The last 2 years as the operations captain, I specifically control the entire patrol division, so I oversee all the patrol deputies, the special investigations unit, all of our special programs dealing with search and rescue, marine patrol, and our interagency narcotics team. I consult with the sheriff on a daily basis about where our money is going, how we're spending our dollar, and whether or not we're doing it most efficiently. Currently, I also hold an executive certificate through the Department of Public Safety Standards and Training, which is the highest level certification that you can obtain through the state. And with all that training experience and the fact I've been doing this for the last 8 years, when I walk in the morning, every day we talk about how we're doing things and if there's something we can change and something we can do better. Make sure we're hiring the right people, make sure we're spending the money where we should be. And if we're spending too much time on an area or a project that we shouldn't be doing, then we change the direction we're going to go and we move forward.
My education is from the University of Portland. I'd attended there for 3 years. I was drafted after my junior year in baseball, and I went on to play baseball for 7 years. University of Portland, I have equivalent of an associate's degree, although they do not give out associate's degrees. With that, after attending college, went on and played 7 years of baseball. I'm 52 years of age, so I have a tremendous amount of life experiences. There's no certificates, no certifications that can replace that. Absolutely none. I owned a business for 15 years, so I know exactly what it takes to manage people, to be a leader, to build leadership, morale, spend money within the constraints of a budget, how to maintain and sustain funding for a budget. I've written grants through our ATV program and our force program along with Sergeant Shipley. I've attended classifications in NIMS, which is our emergency management. I'm a force patrol deputy. I am our traffic crash reconstruction technician. I'm a traffic crash investigator, field training officer, public information officer. I have a lot of experience starting back in 1994 when I started working with Newburgh and law enforcement. And throughout that, I've worked in court security, inmate transports as well. Again, I've also learned different assets of the office, worked in many different agencies and categories of our office. But again, it comes down to life experiences, running a business, owning a business, and knowing how to manage that. You can come in every day and be a supervisor and have all the certificates you want. That does not automatically qualify you to be a leader and to be the leader of a business. We're at the business end of the sheriff's office now, and where we stand is this is an election. It's not a promotion. Thank you.
Okay, our next question, and we'll have Tim Svensson start this. How will your department work collaboratively with the Newburgh-Dundee Police Department?
Well, currently, I think we have a pretty decent relationship. Monthly, we have the law enforcement executives meet throughout the county to discuss different things that are going on within the county and within the community. There's always going to be a disconnect with the county seat in McMinnville. The hardest part is making sure that our command staff, our deputies, and our sergeants get out into the rural parts and stretch all the way into the north end and the east end of our county. I think that the partnerships that we have right now dealing with mental health, I work closely with Captain Bullock with the Community Crisis Response Team, and we meet monthly. We deal with crisis intervention training that I've allowed and brought into the city of Newburgh and Dundee, and asked them if they wanted to partner and to come into this training as well to get some of their staff trained up in this area. So I think right now that the partnership is working. If it needs to improve, my door is always open. As it is right now as the operations captain, anybody can come in right now and talk to me and engage in a conversation. And if the partnership needs to expand and we need to do better than what we're doing right now, then I'm open for that conversation.
Next, Tim Casey.
Well, I'm from Newburgh, and I started working here in Newburgh in 1994. And my brother Brian is the chief of police here, so he's got a lot of firepower behind him. If I were to come over as a sheriff and not stand behind what he would recommend, I guess we'd have a little issue there. But Brian and I have already discussed this. I've discussed this with Captain Bullock and Kosmicki. My ability to work with other agencies is not just limited to Newburgh. The question is to Newburgh. I've already reached out. I've gone to every chief of police in Yamhill County, and I have talked to the chief of police in Grand Ronde about working together. What it boils down to is everybody in this room and everybody in this county is a citizen of Yamhill County. They are not just a citizen or a person of the city that they live in. Some of these smaller agencies do not have the ability to have 24/7 coverage, 365. Newburgh does. Nonetheless, there are times where shifts are short and they need coverage or they need help, or we have a major incident where their short bodies will be here to assist them. We'll be there to assist other agencies, and we know they will assist us as well. We'll do whatever it takes to make sure that we fulfill the oath that we take to uphold the Constitution of the United States and protect each person and each one of your constitutional rights. Protect you while you're at home, while you're away from your homes, and while you're traveling down the road. We protect your families. There's a lot of citizens in here that don't necessarily live in the city of Newburgh, but live in the county. Therefore, we will have a shift car here at all costs, and if we have the ability to, we'll have more than one shift car helping patrol the Newburgh area. There is no question we'll be easily to work together between Newburgh and Yamhill County Sheriff's Office. This will be a great working relationship with them and all other agencies in the county as well, as far as the municipalities.
Throughout my career, I've worked in several communities, and I view Yamhill County as one community. Each end of the county has different aspects that make it different. Newburgh is different from Grand Ronde, which is different from Yamhill and different from Amity. When I started in law enforcement here in Yamhill County, we used to come to briefings. We used to have a desk in the Newburgh Police Department, and it was considered a substation. We would come over and we'd sit in on their briefings. I still continue that as I can as a supervisor, and I encourage everybody that I work with from doing that. But having working relationships in the Newburgh area is not just with the police department. It's with the fire department, the Old Fashioned Festival. It's the boat races. Our Marine Patrol is very integral in this area. And we need to, I'll be honest, our relationships has not been as good as it could be in the recent past. Our multi-agency traffic team is basically non-existent. We don't practice together, we don't train together, we don't even do call-outs anymore. That needs to stop, and we need to rebuild those relationships and start working together through training and exercises. And it's not just Newburgh, it's McMinnville, it's Amity, Yamhill, Carlton, Oregon State Police. There's lots of areas where we can improve. One of the goals that I would have is to make a major crimes team and a multi-agency traffic team more of a county-wide group that actually participates in other things other than just the investigation part. They actually participate in the educational part of what we do. I would like to see Newburgh come back to the Yamhill County Interagency Narcotics Team. While I was assigned to that team, Captain Kosmicki and I worked closely together on several issues, and Newburgh was an integral part of what we did. I just think there's lots of room for improvement, and it's time that we start building those bridges.
Okay. We're going to shift focus a little bit and get more specifically into a couple issues that would be impacted by the Sheriff's Department. First of all, for Tim Casey, how will the establishment of marijuana dispensaries affect the work of the Sheriff's Department moving forward?
Well, I oppose the medical marijuana dispensaries. There's no question that there are people that need to use marijuana for medical treatment. There's no question about that. The problem is to have the dispensaries in our society. They're unlicensed, they're unregulated. The selling is unlicensed, unregulated. The manufacturing is unlicensed, unregulated. The packaging is unlicensed and unregulated. What's going to happen is what we've already seen. There's going to be robberies, there's going to be assaults. We've seen store windows kicked in Portland and other places where they already have medical marijuana dispensaries. You're going to have people walking down the street going to a medical marijuana dispensary with a large amount of cash in their pocket and coming out perhaps with a large amount of marijuana. So there's two bad issues. Somebody's going to be looking to take their money or their marijuana or both. If you guys remember a couple months ago in Canby, there was a guy that was shot several times in a parking lot of an apartment complex. He hit several cars and he ends up dying. Ward Weaver's son was one of the shooters. They were robbing him because he had 5 pounds of marijuana in his car. We will see a lot more of that. We have enough problems out on the streets to deal with what we have to deal with, than to go back and have to now enforce medical marijuana laws or regulations or the assaults. We're going to have children that are going to have access to this. You have the medibles. You have marijuana in gummy bears, brownies, chocolate chip cookies, popcorn, caramel popcorn, Klondike bars. All these things that a child would love to get his hands on, doesn't know that it's marijuana. Child's going to get a handful of that, end up in the emergency room, and perhaps even die. So the medical marijuana dispensaries right now are going to be very difficult for our cities in the county to have to deal with. It's just going to create a lot more problems, and again, they're unlicensed and unregulated. The feds they don't even take the money deposited in the bank because of where it's coming from, and the sale of the marijuana is going to be on the uprise.
We in law enforcement are all going to have the same view on this. We're opposed to this dispensaries. We in law enforcement don't have the ability to stop it. I worked narcotics for over 4 years with the drug team. I teach narcotics investigation at the police academy. I am opposed to medical marijuana dispensaries in our county, and I think our commissioners and our city council members are doing the right thing by putting moratoriums on it until this thing can get figured out. The problem we have is lawmakers are the ones that are making the laws that influence this. We have an ability through the Oregon State Sheriff's Association and the Association of Chiefs of Police and the DA's Association to influence the lawmakers to change that. But I've been battling the war on drugs my entire career, and I'm going to tell you right now, we're not winning it, and we won't win it. So rather than keep putting Band-Aids over it, let's do what Tim's saying, and let's regulate it, let's control it, let's make sure that there's no dispensaries next to daycare centers. But we need to look into the future, and we need to look at the horizon. Marijuana is going to be legal in this state. Whether it's a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, it's going to be legal. And we need to start taking steps now to pass laws that govern the use of marijuana for when it is legal. We don't want to find ourselves in the same position as Colorado, where there's 16-year-old kids sitting at a bus stop smoking marijuana right next to other kids that don't want to smoke it. That's because when Colorado passed the marijuana law, it was illegal one day and it was legal the next, and there was absolutely no governing on who could use it, how they could use it, or where they could use it. So the governor, the commissioners, the lawmakers in this state, city council members, they need to keep doing their work to regulate dispensaries, but we also need to look in the future and start planning for the future so that we can regulate the use of legalized marijuana for when it does come.
Well, like the other candidates indicated, law enforcement is opposed to bringing in dispensaries. The Oregon Medical Marijuana Act was enacted for a reason. There are a small percentage of people out there that actually benefit from the use of medical marijuana. With the medical marijuana dispensaries, what it's doing is it's allowing it to be much easily and accessible in our communities. The clients that need the medicine were able to get it when they needed it. It's just now that because they're growing so much of it, now those people who are growing much more than what they need to use are going to have a place to dump it, and that's the medical marijuana dispensary. Currently, right now in our county, we only have a handful of drug recognition experts. In the sheriff's office, we only have one drug recognition expert. What they're there for is if we get in a position where we stop someone who's under the influence of some sort of narcotic or any other type of drug, and it's not alcohol, we have to bring in a specialist to determine what drug they're on. The problem that they're having in Washington and Colorado is that there are no ways, there's not a breathalyzer test out there to be able to determine what the limit is when they are using marijuana. The state has no limit of what is an acceptable amount for to be determined under the influence. So one of the issues that the sheriff's office is going to have to deal with, like Joe said, I applaud the cities and the counties for putting a 1-year moratorium on it that allows it to deflect it down farther down the road so that the state can come back and fix the law. But now the sheriff's office is going to have to figure out when that comes down the road and we have more people intoxicated and impaired by marijuana, we're going to have to figure out how we're going to be able to train up our staff to recognize that and to determine if they are impaired and to successfully prosecute them.
Thank you all. We're going to go to our next question. Joe, if you can start us off. What role should the Sheriff's Department play in the county's evidence-based decision-making program?
Well, we've been involved in that since basically its inception with the county, and I think that the Sheriff's Office has as big a role equal to the DA's office and the courts and the Chief of Police and everybody else. It's like any other process in our government. We can't do anything by ourselves, and we shouldn't be making decisions by ourselves about how, when, and where, and why law enforcement practices are happening. There has to be a collaboration of everybody involved to set the standards. And I think the DA Berry is in the back. I think he, along with our office and the courts and the chiefs of police, are all doing a good job of feeling those issues out and making good decisions rather than jumping in and maybe getting in over our heads to begin with. I don't know anything else I could add to that other than I see the Sheriff's Office continuing to work closely with all those other organizations to make sure that we're making good, sound decisions using good common sense.
Thank you. Tim Stetson.
With evidence-based decision-making, that was the hot topic that came down from the federal government a few years ago. Yamhill County with Health and Human Services, Community Corrections, and the courts and the DA and the criminal justice team partnered together, and they put out a grant to bring in someone to help develop some sort of program when it comes to evidence-based decision making. The idea behind it is with the jail, when we incarcerate someone, is the person that we just incarcerated more likely than not to reoffend? Are they a danger to society? Or are these first-time offenders who have never been in trouble before and are arrested for a DUI, whether we should release them prior to showing up to court? It all has to do with releasing someone prior to showing up to court. Are they going to come back when we release them to see the judge and to face the consequences of their actions? I think in Yamhill County, before that program came about, I think that Yamhill County was actually doing a really good job of that. Whenever our jail had someone in our facility that we didn't think deserved to be there, whether it was a vulnerable population member who was in crisis for mental health, or it was an individual who has a job and they need to keep their job, and if they lose their job, they're probably going to spiral downhill and continue having issues. Our office would go to the DA, our office would go to the courts, and we would work with them to find ways to better utilize the incarceration of these individuals. And I think with evidence-based decision-making, it's here, it's on its way down the path. The Sheriff's Office continues to work with it. The jail uses the model, the VPRAE model, when it comes to release criteria. And as the years go on, they're going to be able to show us the numbers to determine whether this is a successful program. And if it's successful, then I would support we continue to move on that.
Tim Casey.
Well, being third on this question here, I concur with a lot of what Tim and Joe say. The release of some of these people is good at times, and for other times it's not. And there's a lot at stake here, again, like I said, with people that have jobs or have need to get back paying bills for their families, time away from work that they may lose their job. There was an issue that was brought up at our last meeting. What do you do, and why should we not reimburse somebody that's been arrested and they're innocent and they have all these dues wrapped up in jail? And there's some people that would like to see those people get reimbursed if they're proven to be innocent and not guilty. So with time in jail, with the evidence-based decisions, I think, again, the DA's office is doing a good job with that. I think the states are doing a good job with their decisions. And it's a tough decision for the sheriff to make, because our job is to enforce the laws, make sure that people are incarcerated, stay incarcerated, and for whatever issue they're incarcerated for, to spend that time until they face the judge or the jury, and the decisions made on what the outcome of their convictions may or may not be. So that's a very difficult and delicate situation right now, or issue that we're dealing with, but I think that everything's handled properly, and I think if there are some changes there, they'll be made, and they'll be made for the better, and that things will continue on smoothly, whether we have to make any changes or not.
Thank you. Tim Svensson, if you can head up, this is going to be our final question before we get to the closing statements. There have been highly publicized discussions about the local enforcement of federal firearms regulations. What is your position on enforcement of existing federal firearms regulations?
Well, this is a hot topic in Yamhill County. We've been to probably 2 or 3 forums, and I think every forum that we've been to, someone wants to know our position on this. When it comes to the Second Amendment, and I think everyone's going to say the same thing. When we take the oath for sheriff, we're swearing to uphold the Constitution, both the federal Constitution and the state Constitution. Part of that is your Second Amendment rights to bear arms. We will uphold that. I will uphold that. We've had several instances in the recent past where people have requested concealed handgun license information from our office. They want to know how many concealed handgun license holders we have in the county, and how many, and they literally want the names and addresses of all these people. We've taken the stance that we're not going to release that. It's been challenged in court and upheld, that we have the right to withhold that information, and we're going to continue to do that. Some people have asked the question as to whether or not I would support signing a constitutionalist pledge, which indicates that under no circumstances whatsoever would I allow a federal agent to come into my county and to go into our citizens' homes and take a firearm. And the response I had to that was, when I take the oath to uphold the U.S. Constitution and the state Constitution, I'm giving you my pledge and my oath that I am going to uphold that Constitution. And if that action violates your rights, I'm not going to allow it. And I don't necessarily need to sign an additional pledge on top of that to indicate that that is how I feel.
Tim Casey.
Well, I'm pro Second Amendment. We all have the right to keep and bear arms. No federal agency, no state, no local government agency should come in and ask us to assist them in taking your firearms away. If they come in and they ask Sheriff Casey, will you help us disarm your citizens? Absolutely not. And matter of fact, here's probably a couple addresses you might want to be careful of, because they have quite a few firearms and a lot of ammo, and they're a pretty good shot. It is your right, and we don't have the right, and we should not give out your information on the fact whether you own a firearm or not. We don't do that with everything else you have. We don't go and say, well, yeah, he's got a 50-inch big screen TV, and we don't give out that information. It doesn't belong to anybody else. It's your right. But I also think that we shouldn't just sit here and say, yeah, we're going to protect your rights of the entire Constitution, but particularly of the Second Amendment. I think that we need to keep letting the legislators know that we are going to fight for the freedom to keep your firearms, that we're not going to just say, yeah, when another issue comes up, yeah, okay, yeah, we support it. We need to let them know that we are not going to let them disarm our citizens, that we're not going to let them get information about who has a firearm that's registered or not, and that we're not going to let them try to disband or cut back on the sale of the firearms, the magazines, or whatever. The guy in the White House is the guy that takes charge of a lot of this stuff. He's the guy that's going to sit here and say, well, I'm not going to, maybe we can't, we've tried to disarm you. We can't do that, so now I've regulated the sale of the ammunition. A few years ago, I used to go out and buy a 5-pound box. I think there was 500 rounds of 22. You could get it for about $5. If you can find them now, they're nearly $25. So they're going to limit the sale of the ammunition and the size of the magazines and regulate the type of guns that we shoot. They're going to try. It doesn't stop some of the issues that are out there, and the big issues are is that people get shot in the schools. A person that's going to kill is going to kill no matter what, whether it's a firearm or not. And I'm pro Second Amendment will protect your rights. Thank you.
When I went in the military, I raised my hand in front of some colonel and took an oath to defend and uphold the Constitution of the United States, the entire Constitution, not just the Second Amendment, the First Amendment, or any others, the entire Constitution. I served my country, and I upheld that oath and defended the Constitution in lands that I really had no interest in being in. When I became a sheriff's deputy with the Yamhill County Sheriff's Office, I stood in front of Sheriff Lee Vasquez and took that same oath to not only defend the Constitution of the United States, but also the Constitution of the state of Oregon. I've done that for 22 years under 3 different sheriffs, and I've taken that same oath 3 different times. I believe in the Constitution. I uphold the Constitution, and I'll defend it. There are Supreme Court rulings that will change parts of the Constitution, modify parts of the Constitution, and as far as us helping federal agents come in and do things, that would be under the Hatch Act, and we don't get involved in that. That's a federal thing. The issue about constitutional sheriff, that's Sheriff Tim Mueller down in Lynn County. And I've read that constitutional sheriff's pledge, and basically all it says is, I will not do anything unless there's probable cause. Well, that's the same thing that we do now. There's no need to take a pledge to say that I'm going to do the same thing I'm doing now. As your sheriff, I will do everything to protect your rights, your home, your family, your life, your property, and uphold the Constitution under the same oath that I've taken for over 30 years.
Okay. Thank you all. Those are the questions. Take a moment to breathe, take a glass of water. We're now coming to our closing statements, and I just want to say, even before we get to that, this is a really special time in our county. Sheriff Crabtree has served since 2002. And so this is a big moment. So I just want to take an opportunity to say thank you to all of you for being here, for educating yourself. We've all seen the signs. You all have great signs, by the way. They're everywhere. And so And we can even see them through all the county commissioners' candidates as well. So that's good. They stand out in addition to all of those. But we've seen the signs, and now getting a chance to meet you and hear your thoughts. This has been really helpful, at least for me, and I hope for everyone here, folks listening at home, on KLYC. And yes, so with that, we're gonna go to the closing statements. Tim Casey, we're gonna start with you and move down the table. So you've got 2 minutes.
Okay. Well, I respectively ask each and every one of you here for your vote. Again, we're vested in this county. Our family's been here since the 1800s. We have invested a lot in the city of Newburgh, the county of Yamhill, and abroad. Growing up here, I never thought that I was going to be the sheriff of Yamhill County. I always thought I was going to play in the big leagues and I wouldn't have to do anything else but maybe go fishing after I was retired or go hunting. That's changed, and I'm sitting here now running for sheriff of Yamhill County. Again, we're at the business end of the sheriff's office now. This is not as much now as what you know about being a law enforcement officer, or how many certificates you say you have, or how many classes that you've gone to that certifies you to be a leader. None of those. I've got certificates myself, and I don't have a one that says, "Congratulations, Tim Casey, you'll now be a good sheriff." They don't say that. They don't guarantee that. You're born with leadership, and it's very hard to acquire through certificates. Everybody in this class or this building here can go to a class and get a certificate. That doesn't qualify you to be the sheriff. What qualifies you to be the sheriff is being a businessman, knowing how to manage a budget, knowing how to manage people. You have to be a liaison between the sheriff's office, the deputies, the staff, business owners, and you have to have a business sense of mind. That when you come in every day, you know that your captains and your deputies are taking care of the jail and the patrol. They're going to give you issues to deal with. What kind of problems now? How do I handle it? With 52 years of life experiences on top of owning a business, being in law enforcement since 1994, there's no question I hold the highest value and ability to run Yamhill County Sheriff's Office for you. It's what I can do for you. It's not what you can do for me. Every citizen here is my boss, or will be my boss. And I'm here to listen to each and every one of you, and I respectfully ask your vote, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim Casey. Josh Shipley.
There's no question that you're going to have one good sheriff. All three of us are qualified and capable of running the sheriff's office. The minimum qualifications for being a sheriff is basically breathing. What separates me from the other two is I have proven leadership skills through the fire service, the military, the law enforcement community, as a coach, as a father, as a husband, as a son. And my vision for the future, my vision of the future for Yamhill County isn't repeating the mistakes of our past. We cannot continue to operate in 2014 and beyond with 1960s, 1970s technology and skills. We have to look at the future and make sure we don't repeat our past. When I started in law enforcement 22 years ago, there was as much emphasis on education and prevention as there was enforcement. Over the last 15 years, we've gone strictly enforcement. My goal of the future is to bring back education of our youth in many different areas, and prevention measures that our seniors and our elderly can utilize so that they're not victims of fraud and identity theft. We need to bring back those important programs so that we can reduce the amount of enforcement that we have to do. I don't believe that we have the proper staffing with the sheriff's office. I think that we can improve our staffing, and I've devised a plan, and I think it'll work, and I may be wrong, but I'm not so big I can't step back and say that was a huge fail, and we'll start over again. But if we implement my plan, we will increase staff on patrol and stay within the current budget. I think we need to be aggressive in our responsibility to the community and our fiscal responsibility by not just taking the money that we're given by the commissioners, but actively seeking out alternative stable funding that has no impact on the taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergeant Shipley. And finally, Tim Svensson.
Well, like both the other candidates have already mentioned, come May, you guys are going to have an incredible opportunity to elect or to vote for your next sheriff. As he mentioned earlier, Sheriff Crabtree has served since 2002, and we have brought our office from an office that was not financially sound to where we are accountable to the citizens, we're transparent, and we do not waste your dollars. The position is an elected position. It's an office. The office of the sheriff is outlined in statute, and as Tim Casey had indicated, that certifications and education isn't necessarily all that you need to be a sheriff. But I can tell you that my life experiences through the sheriff's office has been nothing but leadership. I promoted very quickly through the office. I am currently the operations captain, and I assist in managing our operations and our budgets within the office. And the only thing I'll just want to leave you with is a quote from the News Register, who came out last week and endorsed me, indicated that Swenson has substantial command experience and exposure to the difficult demands of budgeting, personnel, public information, and interagency collaboration. Among the three candidates, he has acquired the most credentials needed to run an office with more than 100 employees and a $13 million annual budget. And I ask for your vote in May, and I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Would you please give a big round of applause for all three of us? That brings us to the conclusion of today's forum. I just again want to say thank you to the three of you for being here. Thank you to the three of you for stepping forward and running for this position. This is, like I said before, it is a significant position, a significant role in our community. And thank you, too, for the work that you do every day. One of you will be elected, but all three of you are serving this community right now. And so we are grateful for that. Thank you very much. I think all three have materials out front. They may stick around and be able to answer questions if you have them. Other than that, thank you all for being here. Thank you for taking the time to invest in this community and giving yourself the knowledge that you need to vote. Remember, May 20th is primary day. Ballots and all of that will be arriving soon. But make sure you get those sent in by May 20th. Thank you so much for being here.
So there you have it. And welcome to KLYC Radio. Hope you enjoyed that and find it informative. We will have that later today on our website, klyc.us, and you'll be able to hear it. If you want to hear what some of the candidates had to say, then you can